When using complete sentences in parenthetical e.g. or I situations, should the first word be capitalized? In a bulleted list of very technical sentences, where each bulleted item has one or two parenthetical examples or restatements which are complete sentences, should the first letter of each e.g. or I sentence be capitalized or not? Example. Here is my technical sentence. Example, should the first word of this e.g. be capitalized like this? Here is another technical sentence. This really isn't a different example to highlight whether the first word should or should not be capitalized after a parenthetical I.
A parenthetical statement that is a complete sentence should begin with a capital. Your examples are wrong, however, because you should begin by capitalizing the first letter of the abbreviation IE or EG. Here is my technical sentence. E.g., should a word of this example be capitalized like this? Here is another technical sentence. I.e., this really isn't an IE, I just want to know if the first word should or should not be capitalized, and I'm providing an example of yes and no.
First, as a matter of style, I would avoid using IE and EG altogether. These are Latin abbreviations whose actual meaning is lost on most native English speakers and almost all readers coming from another native language. Second, they have similar meaning, but are not equivalent. See this URL for a concise explanation. Third, writers typically mean, for example, or, such as, when they use EG and IE better imho to simply write what you mean and be done with it. To answer the original question, in your last example, the answer is simple. Using EG or IE would be unnecessary and possibly grammatically incorrect in this construction. The passage is perfectly clear as we discussed, you will bring 2 items. A sleeping bag and a tent are not optional. Note that the period goes inside the parentheses. It does not add any information, though it is not incorrect to say. As we discussed, you will bring 2 items. For example, a sleeping bag and a tent are not optional. As we discussed, you will bring 2 items. That is, a sleeping bag and a tent are not optional. All that said, if either EG or IE begins a sentence, it should be capitalized.
Ili wajib podpisano, kliknite se u link subscribe.